COVID-19 pandemic is a contagious disease caused by a virus, the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2. The first known case was in Wuhan, China, in December 2019. The disease quickly spread worldwide, resulting in COVID-19 pandemic. Since then, many countries have created preventive measures, including wearing a properly fitted mask, washing hands, or using an alcohol-based rub frequently and getting vaccinated. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, face masks were mainly used by the Vietnamese to avoid sunlight or in medical facilities by medics. It is safe to say that masks weren't a popular product before the pandemic. Next, we will talk about the mass market supply. The trend of the mass market supply from 2019 to 2021 is generally rising. As of 2019, Vietnam has about 25 manufacturing enterprises in the mass market. However, according to a report in 2020, there are 116 firms and enterprises producing masks, amounting to 13 million face masks per day. However, coming near 2021 and after, multiple producers went bankrupt, selling production equipment and materials at half price and lower. This reduced supply. The reasons for the changes in supply is due to the introduction of the COVID-19 pandemic. In the early 2020, buyers' demand for masks and other medical equipment skyrocketed, which in result raised the price of medical masks and therefore raised supply. The Department of Economic Police had to inspect a number of medical equipment shops, which were raising the price of masks to many times the usual price for personal gain. In late 2021, the pandemic had temporarily stopped. This reduced consumer demand for medical masks. Furthermore, masks were provided via many other sources. For example, 320,000 medical masks from China are given to Vietnam in September 2020. This is the reason for the reduced supply. Next, we will talk about the trend of mass market demand in the time period. The introduction of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 catapulted consumers' demand for medical masks to protect their health. In this survey, 56% of Vietnamese always wear a mask outside, and 33% often use it. This meant that the demand for masks was very high. Furthermore, people had a tendency to stockpile in fear of goods being out of stock. More than 59.4% of respondents stockpiled medical supplies in this survey, masks included, during the pandemic. All of this really raised the demand. However, from 2021 to now, the pandemic is gradually being controlled by vaccination, so the demand masks are no longer urgent. People only buy 1 to 2 mask packages. Aside from COVID-19 being an obvious factor, consumers' expectation also played a huge role in mask demand rising over the past few years. In a survey, 88% of Vietnamese respondents are expected to continue using face masks after the pandemic. However, in 2021, with the introduction of vaccines, masks are less needed for consumers to protect themselves. Not only that, but supply was becoming more abundant, and there were many different types of masks to act as substitute. This is why demand for masks in 2021 until now has reduced and stabilized. At the start of the pandemic in 2020, the elasticity of demand is inelastic. This is because as the price skyrocketed, the demand for masks does not decrease. However, in 2021, there was an abundance of masks on the market due to overproduction. Furthermore, there are many substitute precautionary measures. Therefore, the elasticity of demand becomes more elastic, which means that should the price be raised, demand for masks will decrease. Here is the diagram for the units of face masks exported per month in 2020 and 2021. In 2020, Vietnamese business exported more than 1.3 billion different types of medical masks for the entire year of 2020. More than 230 million of which reached the peak in June. After Vietnam experienced the second wave of COVID infections, the exports fell in July and August, before picking up again in September going forward. However, in 2021, Vietnamese business only shipped 450 million different types of medical masks. The fall is likely due to the decrease of demand worldwide. Now let's talk about government policies on the mass market. Overall, there are 4 policies. Materials imported, which increase supply to meet the demand of people during the pandemic season. Tax reduction from August 1, 2021. Quality assessment and classification, which saw different types of masks being classified according to the level of risk at each different case. Medical facility must meet certain standards, have a dossier of declaration of eligibility for medical equipment and fully register for prescribed procedure. And finally, distribution. In 2021, there are 30 businesses making medical masks with a production capability for 12 and 13 million pieces a day with a very stable selling prices. Finally, we discuss solutions to develop the mass market in Vietnam. For consumers, keep calm and listen to what the experts say. Don't hoard masks and equip with the skill to choose a mask to suit your using. For enterprises, keep developing commercial marketing activities and improving mass products. Expand the supplies of face masks instead of supplying in a single territory. Stick closely to the market and develop and implement programs to stimulate consumers' demand. Finally, for authorities, punish pharmacies which are reported to be involved in price gouging. Set a price ceiling. Have more policies to support business and companies in the domestic mass manufacturing industry. Provide more advanced technology and issue other policies to support the development of other industry related to mass material. In conclusion, the COVID-19 pandemic has drastically raised the cost of masks. This video makes an effort to provide an economic explanation for the market price mechanism by an examination of microdata, supplies and demand trends, price elasticity of supply, and other factors. The elements have determined the price of masks are supply and demand, among other factors that have an impact on the price of masks. Price of masks have an externality effect and influence both the supplies and demand for masks. Mask price rise as a result of the low short-term price elasticity of masks. At the same time, the increase in supplies is not immediately apparent, but over the long term, prices plummet because supply is more responsive to price change. The fact that so many manufacturers entered the market in the midst of the pandemic also contributed to the overproduction of masks, which caused many of them to leave and accelerate the growth of mask makers while simultaneously raising entry barriers in the business. Re-entering the mass market will only result in a decrease in the equilibrium price of masks because the market is already filled and the epidemic is getting better. However, given the current state of the global pandemic, the potential of the mass market is still substantial over the long term. Since COVID-19 pandemic prevention has entered the normal phase and mass consumption is sufficient for personal protection, mass brand manufacturers can continue to expand and develop.